A couple weeks ago, I made a video about WandaVision, which a lot of people watch for some reason. If you haven't seen it yet, then link will be in the top right corner of this video if I remember to put it there. But anyway, a lot of people watched that video. It was a video about the WandaVision's ratings in IMDb, the fact that people were just not getting it. So many reviews are saying that this is not what they wanted from a Marvel TV show, because at that point, only 2 episodes had been released, and those episodes were like entirely sitcom. There was a little bit of an intense moment in episode 1, which like broke the sitcom reality a bit, and episode 2 had a bit as well with the ending, but for the most part, it was nothing like the newer episodes, which have the real Marvel universe and all the explanations and stuff. Because of that, because there are a lot of people who just didn't get it, they were giving it very low ratings, and the rating of the show at the point I made that video fell to 7.8 out of 10, and then afterwards it fell to 7.5. So it was at 7.5 throughout episode 1 and 2 till episode 3, and then episode 4 came out and things started to change. Episode 4 broke the mold for WandaVision, as almost the entirety of the episode took place in the real Marvel universe and not in the sitcom world, and the scenes that did take place in the sitcom world were either in the sitcom world but a lot more real, as there wasn't a laugh track and there was much more intense scenes, or it was a sitcom world but it was the characters of the Marvel universe watching the show that we watched previously. This episode, I think, came perfectly within the season and where it was placed in the season, because what it accomplished was no small task. It, for one, explained all the things that people didn't understand, and I'm not saying the people who didn't understand are stupid. I'm saying that they probably just didn't care as much, because there are some people who, they watch the show and then they look into all the things, they watch videos on it, or they read the subreddits, and then they get all these theories which explain a lot of things. But then there are the type of people who just watch the show because it's a show they want to watch and they don't look into it more, so it's a show that you probably have to look into more to understand. That is until episode 4, which basically explains everything that you need to know up until that point. That explains a lot of what happened in the first 3 episodes, and for the people who did get it already, it basically just validates a lot of their theories, which is, it's a great feeling to watch something and to get invested in this show, and then you look up all these theories, you come up with one on your own, maybe you talk with your friends about it or something, and then those theories are validated. It's definitely a very good feeling, which is why I think this episode accomplishes something that it needed to do, and it did it very, very well, which is validate all the theories for the people who did understand and basically explain it to all the people who didn't understand, and now people are starting to get it a lot more. Other than explaining things and making the show better overall, the episode on itself was fantastic. The opening scene, I think, was incredible, where Monica comes back from the dead, where she's blipped back where she was snapped away 5 years ago. This is absolutely chilling, the chaos that ensues from this. It's so interesting, and it's honestly something that they could do in every single Marvel property going forward, except for like Loki and What If. Everything else, they basically can't do that, because there's going to be at least one character, significant or otherwise, who was snapped away, because probably, I mean, it has to be that half of them were, so for them to come back and their point of view of coming back, it could be so interesting, and it's something that I think Spider-Man Far From Home, it's one of its biggest flaws, where it was more of a jokey thing. They didn't take it seriously, while WandaVision takes it so seriously, because it's a very serious matter. It's almost as chaotic and almost as insane as the snap itself, the blip where half of the people who were gone, or everyone who was gone, is now back, so I think they handled that perfectly. This episode also introduces us to the supporting cast of WandaVision, who only ever really appeared in cameos, which is like Jimmy's voice and Darcy's hand, basically, and then also Monica appearing as Geraldine, which is basically a completely different character up until the end. So this episode basically introduces us to the supporting cast, which is the sword trio, if you want to call them that, and they are really entertaining. They have a great back and forth. It just feels like that we are them. They are watching the show, theorizing about it, and it's so fun to watch. Basically, all the theories that we came up with, Marvel predicted them and they wrote them on that board, which is it's so genius. And I also feel like I'm obligated to mention the card trick from Jimmy, which is just such a great callback, and also the Vision Corpse, which was really freaky. So with as good as this episode was, it has now a 9.1 rating out of 10 on IMDb, which is basically what it's probably going to have for the rest of time. But it also affected the rating of the show. Like I said, the show's rating fell to a 7.5 after I made that video, where it was at a 7.8. Then after I made the video, it fell to a 7.5, which just does not deserve, even based off the first 3 episodes. But then this episode came out and it recovered, as this episode brought it up to a 7.6, then a 7.7, and finally a 7.8. It got up to a 7.8 before the 5th episode came out, and in fact, a couple days before the 6th episode came out, which is such a glow up. I mean, it's such a redemption arc, I guess, where it fell all the way down to a 7.5, and for one episode to bring it back up to a 7.8 is significant. But that's actually not the end of the line, because right now on IMDb, it's not a 7.8 because of episode 5. Episode 5 was absolutely fantastic and easily the best episode of the season so far, which based off of my high praise of episode 4 is saying a lot. This episode basically takes all the best things of both sides of the show, the sitcom reality, which is just full of intrigue and subtlety and such fun moments as well, with the sword side of the reality, which really grounds this story. It explains a lot more things, and it has very interesting and fun characters as well. Both of these storylines are front and center, and they even collide in such a great way. The scene where Wanda confronts Sword is absolutely fantastic. For one, there's the subtle thing that she leaves the barrier, she leaves the reality, and her accent comes back, meaning that she was faking or she was changing the reality around her to make her sound more American to fit the sitcom. But her accent comes back, and it's a lot stronger than it was in Infinity War and Endgame, which I guess that was a little bit of a complaint for those movies, that her accent just disappeared. But anyway, the scene itself is incredibly intense. The confrontation is so well handled, and Wanda herself feels so powerful and scary at this point. It's so well handled. Which also bleeds into the Vision storyline, where he, from previous episodes, starts to realize things are off. And this episode, he just goes all into it. Literally everything that is happening in this reality is bothering him because it all seems fake, which is so interesting, but also it leads into the confrontation between Vision and Wanda, which is very, very well acted, very, very well done, and again, another fantastic part of this episode. And of course, there's the ending with Quicksilver being brought in, which, I mean, obviously that's crazy, because, I mean, even if this was the MCU Quicksilver, that would be crazy, but this is not. It's the X-Men Quicksilver, played by the same actor, Evan Peters. Now, I don't know what this means. Like, does this mean that this is actually the Quicksilver from the X-Men universe, if they're being brought in, if this is an exception and it's only him, or if Wanda maybe, like, peered into a separate universe so that Quicksilver can be in her life because she can't bring somebody back to life? Or if this is just a recasting, like Darcy said, and he just so happens to look like the Quicksilver of a separate universe. I don't know. I have no idea what this means, and it's such a fun thing. I mean, this is why I love the week-to-week thing. I said in my previous video that I think that WandaVision should have been released at one go, but that is so not true. I completely take that back, because I absolutely love the theorizing from week to week, the build-up of anticipation for week to week that I don't think a show can accomplish on one release. And honestly, I don't think there is really any show that would benefit from a single release, especially a show like WandaVision. This episode now has a 9.4 rating on IMDb. That might fall to a 9.3 or something, because at this point it has less votes than any other episode, so if it does get to that number of votes, it's possible it will fall. It did fall from 9.6 to 9.5 to 9.4, and 9.4 might be the final number, but 9.3 is possible as well. But that's still the highest rating out of any of the shows, and while at this point it hasn't affected the rating as much as episode 4, it did affect it in a very significant way. So episode 4 brought the show up a very large amount with 0.3 points, which is, you could basically say 3 points, which is the exact number that it was at when I made the video. But this episode did something completely different. While it wasn't as significant of a change number-wise, because it did only go up by 1 point so far, that the fact that it went up by that 1 point to a 7.9 means that it's now higher. It has a higher rating than it did when I made the video, which is equally as significant, or at least it's as significant to me, because when I made that video, it was my main gripe, and the fact that it's going up it's exciting, and I hope by the end of the show's run, with potentially every episode from now on being a 9 out of 10 and higher, the show can go up to over 8 out of 10, maybe even to 8.5 or something, which is the range that it deserves, and maybe even higher than that. So that's it for this video, basically going over the whole situation again, a part 2, an update, but also a short review for the episodes I hadn't talked about, episodes 4 and 5. I guess I hadn't talked about episode 3, but basically my thoughts on episode 3 are that it's probably my least favorite episode of the show so far, but that's not to say it's bad, it's just in comparison to the rest, I don't think it offers as much. But it is still a good episode that contributes to the show. So let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and if you like this video, make sure to leave a like, share, and subscribe. And thanks for watching.